Time to talk about American Nazism. No, not the ones that go Zeke Heil. The ones who tell us what we can and cannot say. That's the Thought Police. I'm John Lefter. The program is Steel on Steel.
Steel on Steel. News, commentary, interview, and debate. An alternative information source for politics, religion, and global events. Now, here's the host of Steel on Steel, John Lefter.
Here we are, everybody. Constitution Day weekend. Welcome to Steel on Steel. We're a weekly program dedicated to the sharpening of ideas, news, commentary, interview, information, and debate, much of which you will not hear elsewhere. And our goal and pledge for the last 26 plus years that we've been on the air has been to be an early warning service to connect what to many people are seemingly unrelated dots in the area of economics, politics, and religion, project seemingly unrelated trends, and then show you how these dots and trends are coming together just over the horizon where normally the herd doesn't see it. Herd's almost always running in the wrong direction, and that's because they're being informed by the mainline media, which are looking in the rearview mirror to tell us where we're going, or nowadays, having thrown off any semblance of professionalism, are acting as journalist activists, and they report some stories and they don't report others. They put a particular slant or spin on stories and report some facts, but not all the facts that would give you a totally different picture from the spin they want you to believe in. And since all of that's true, and for all the years we've been on the air, we've been an antidote to that and an early warning service. Remember that your failure to be informed does not make me a wacko. Today we're dedicating our program to the study of American Nazism. In the mind of this author, American Nazism today is the clear and present threat to our freedoms and the freedom of the country. And the key trait of American Nazism is that the Nazis are running around compulsively telling everyone what it is they must not say, or else. American Nazism is the deeply rooted totalitarian belief that people who disagree with you or dissent from a supposed consensus should be forced to shut up. This, of course, flies in the face of a brave and bold tradition in the history of the country, unique in the history of the world, which supports freedom of speech, of the press, and of religion. And today, all three of these are under brutal attack by American Nazis, all in the name of freedom, when in reality, American Nazis are bent on destroying it. Indeed, they despise it. In many aspects, American Nazism is much like its ideological predecessor, German Nazism of the 1920s, 30s, and 40s. It just doesn't have the Sieg Heils yet in the concentration camps. We're working in that direction. There have been proposals, for example, that people who dissent from certain consensus issues should be criminalized and tried and imprisoned for their overt dissension from the so-called consensus. You know, indeed, the key mental disorder of American Nazism is a compulsive totalitarian instinct in which its adherents simply cannot resist coming apart at the seams upon hearing a trigger word and launching into lengthy, irrational tirades or engaging in violence against the offender, all in the name of defending safe spaces and being tolerant. To wit, let's compare American Nazism with German Nazism. German Nazis believed in socialism. American Nazis believe in socialism. Check. German Nazis thought and acted with a totalitarian mindset. American Nazis think and act with a totalitarian mindset. Check. German Nazis preached a religious and philosophical orthodoxy from which no dissent was allowed. American Nazis preach a religious and philosophical orthodoxy from which no dissent is allowed. Check. German Nazis used the force of law to try to force people to conform with their form of morality and ideology. American Nazis try to use the force of law to force people to conform with their notions of ideology and morality. Check. German Nazis fired undesired people from their jobs who dissented from the orthodoxy. American Nazis fire undesirable people who dissent from the orthodoxy from their jobs. Check. German Nazis took over control of the colleges and fired professors or oppressed them, those who dared dissent or expelled students who dissented. American Nazis have taken control of many colleges and intimidate or fire dissenting professors and oppress students who dare dissent, all in the name of preventing oppression, by the way. Check. German Nazis created an atmosphere of fear, where dissenters were afraid to speak for fear of being attacked physically. American Nazis create an atmosphere of fear where dissenters are fearful of speaking. Check. German Nazis relied on large crowds of Sturmabteilung thugs to assault their opponents and keep them from speaking or being heard. American Nazis rely on large crowds of Antifa thugs to assault their opponents and keep them from speaking or being heard. Check. German Nazis relied on censorship and control of the media to promote their own ideology and to prevent other ideologies from being heard. American Nazis are pushing for censorship and control of the media, much of which they have, and the internet, to promote their own ideology and prevent other ideologies from being heard. Check. German Nazis pulled down monuments and burned books to destroy knowledge of German history. American Nazis pull down monuments and have engaged in historic revisionism to destroy knowledge of American history. Check. In reality, if you look at it, American Nazism rests on an unsustainable platform of logical contradictions. American Nazis claim to promote tolerance, but are hideously intolerant of anyone who disagrees with them. American Nazis say they promote diversity, but they insist that everybody be just like they and think like they do. American Nazis claim that their opponents are irrational idiots. But the arguments American Nazis make are incapable of standing up to even the most minimum of rational inquiry, claiming trigger words or hate speech when their ideas are challenged. American Nazis say we need safe spaces, but they deprive those who disagree with them of any safety whatsoever, especially on college campuses. In the 1960s, the radical leftist forebears of today's American Nazis insisted on freedom of speech to say anything, no matter how vulgar and offensive, and they sure did do it. But now their heirs have flipped 180 degrees, and they demand that anything that is offensive or demeans another group or idea or religion, you must not say. In the 1970s and 80s, American Nazis demanded that books in school libraries not be censored, but now demand that everything be censored. In essence, American Nazis today claim to be fighting Nazism of yesterday, but they think and act just like the Nazis of yesterday. In the United States and the West, the challenge to freedom of speech has erupted into a full-blown war. That Americans would even be promoting censorship and engaging in efforts to prevent discourse was a day I never thought I would see in my own country. Because when freedom of speech and thought goes, freedom goes with it. But that day, it's here, and it must be challenged by you and me. I will not sit down. I will not shut up. American Nazism cannot be permitted to prevail if freedom is to survive. I'm John Loeffler at SteelOnSteel.com. The program is Steel on Steel.